Um, so boys and girls, I wanted to show you how fractions can be used in a real world situation, since we're always talking about real situations and you have a lot of word problems that describe real situations, but I wanted you to see an actual situation in progress. So I'm making scones for my family, and I have to make two different versions because one of my children is a vegan. Vegan is a person who doesn't eat any kind of egg or dairy or meat. So I realized at the last minute that I didn't have enough flour to actually make the full amount of what the recipe originally calls for. So this recipe here calls for 2 cups of flour, and this recipe calls for 3 cups of flour. And it also calls for, this one calls for 6 tablespoons of butter. And this recipe calls for half a cup of vegan butter. So what I had to do was change the amounts of butter that I would use, since I'm reducing the amount of flour for each recipe. So if you can see on the chart there, the 1.5 is now the amount of flour I'm using. And so I wanted to divide it by 6, which is the original amount that was called for. So it becomes 3/2 times 1/6. I'll teach you that next, about keep the first, change the second, flip the symbol. And so it ends up being 3/12, which is actually 1/4 of a stick of butter, as opposed to the 6 whole tablespoons. This other recipe, the one that calls for the vegan butter, originally was 3 cups of flour, but I had to divide the 3 cups of flour by a half to see how much that would be with the reduced amount of flour. So it's it's 1/2 divided by 3, and it ends up being 1/6. So that's how much butter, vegan butter, I'll put in that recipe. And that is fractions being used in a real situation. Hopefully these scones come out delicious. Thank you.